Hey guys, and welcome back to Cake Pops with Poppy. I'm Alex, the owner and creator of Poppy Paints, and we are on our last day of the Studio Ghibli Pops, and today is my favorite. It's Totoro from My Neighbor Totoro. If you've never watched that movie, I really suggest it, especially if you have children. It is a family favorite of ours, so I hope you guys enjoy. We will need to get out our cake dough to start off. And remember, my cake dough recipe is on the Poppy Paint YouTube page. Shows you how to make it. All right, squeeze up your dough and then roll it into a ball. Take our ball and we're going to smash it down a little bit. So this is sort of the same shape as No Face, only we won't be making any ridges on the bottom. So Totoro's more of a popsicle shape. So once you've got him squished down and rounded off to where he looks like a popsicle, we're just gonna press down a little bit on top of his head because we are placing ears on here later, so we need a flat surface to use that. So normally we would be dipping our cake pops at this time. For our Totoro though, he is going to have some pointy ears. And I really prefer to apply things like ears underneath the candy coating if possible. I think it gives the cake pop a much cleaner look. So I'm just doing a diamond shape for each ear, just using a small piece of fondant, and I'm using the cornstarch to keep the fondant from sticking to my fingers. So try to get them to where they're close to the same size. Now if you're using gum paste, they'll dry pretty fast. If you're using fondant like I am, you'll probably let them dry at least 10 minutes before putting them on, because otherwise they won't stick too well. Okay. And I'm cutting off the end a little bit because I think that my ears are a little bit too big for the small body that I've made. So I'm gonna get rid of a little bit of this. And I do wanna keep the bottom pointed a little bit because when it dries, I'll be able to push it down into my cake dough. It'll help hold it in place. There we go. So then we're just gonna leave these to dry for about 10 minutes, and then we'll be able to apply them to our Totoro and dip him. Our ears are all dry, and we can attach them to our cake pop after we get our cake attached to this stick. So just like with the others, make sure to put your finger at the top, and when you feel pressure, stop pushing. Smooth out that chocolate that's on the bottom with a toothpick. And then, oh, actually, while I've got chocolate on here, let's go ahead and I'm going to put some right here and some right here. And we'll be taking our ears and placing them right on top of our head. See that corner on the bottom, that point really helps to stick them in there and adhere them on there. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little extra chocolate on the back. Make sure that it holds them in place because they are so small that they will come off easily when you dip them. Now the reason I did the fondant gray is because points like this will show through when you dip, and you really want it to match the color of your chocolate as closely as possible. So that's why I didn't use a white or a black fondant underneath. Okay, and we're gonna leave him to dry for a few minutes, let his ears have time to dry before we dip. Give your chocolate a good stir before you dip because you don't want to have different temperatures of chocolate in there. So you want to really mix it up well. Okay, and we're going to take our Totoro, turn our bowl sideways, and dip straight down at an angle, and then come up. Looks like pusheen right now. I'm going to knock off that extra chocolate by gently tapping my wrist. All right. And if you have any bubbles, which I do, now is the time to pop them. Smooth them out. I think that's all of them. And then he's all ready to dry. We are all ready for my favorite part, which is painting. And we are going to be using Poppy paint, which is an edible paint that is designed for chocolate. And we're going to be using the Buttercup out of the pastel set, along with black, white, and gray. So we're going to be using the Buttercup for his little belly. And before we do his belly, I'm going to go ahead and do his eyes, mouth, and nose, because those really need to have room. So if we get that in the wrong spot, everything's going to be messed up. So belly last. First thing we're going to do is make his nose, and that is going to be made from black. Okay. His nose is just a little triangle shape. I'm going to aim for right about here, pretty close to the top. Like a simple triangle, and then I'll soften out the corners there. And he has a few little lines above his nose on this one, but for this one, I think I'm going to go for a different face. I'm going to give him a big smile instead of his cute little innocent face, because he does have a really big mouth in the movie, and he yawns and does stuff like that a lot. So while we have our blackout, let's go ahead and outline our ears real quick. We'll outline the rest later, but I'm going to go ahead and get the ears out of the way since I've got the black out. So I'm just going to outline them a little bit. I'm going to cause the bottom to be a little bit smaller. I'm going to draw the lines smaller because that's more what they look like. So I'm going to make it more of an arrow shape than a diamond. Draw a few little hairs right here. And then do the other side as well. All right, and his eyes for this one are going to go on either side of his nose, a little bit lower than on this guy. All right, hang on to my cake pop stick. This is why I like having the cake pop stick there. Try to do a circle. Circles are by far the hardest thing for me to do. For his pupils, we are going to use a nail dotting tool. This is a medium-sized end. They are larger and smaller. I have several of them. These are great for pupils, and if you have really small eyes, they're great for small eyes or polka dots. So we're going to dip straight down and then straight down onto our pop right in the eye. And I want his eyes a little bit bigger than that, his pupils. I mean, I want them a little bit bigger. There's one. All right, time for the other one. I'm gonna hold on to my cake pop stick. And I'm gonna go straight down and sort of move around in a circle to get his second pupil. Now these are gonna look a little bit silly until we get the catch light in there, which is the little white dot. That little white dot makes the difference. So we're gonna leave him like that though, because we really gotta let this paint dry, and since we use the paint, or we use the nail daughter, the paint is really gathered in there. There's quite a bit. It doesn't look like it is, but it's a full drop of paint, so we really need to let that air dry. So while that's drying, we'll go ahead and move on to his mouth. Okay, so for his mouth, we are using white again. And I'm gonna draw a straight line. I want his mouth to be slightly wider than his eyes. So I'm gonna go out to the edge like that. And want it to be not too tall, right about, let's see, here and maybe here. And I'm gonna draw a line. Draw a line on this one too. I'm gonna start on the far edge and go up and down. And then I'm going to fill it in. My black paint has gotten a little bit thick while we've been using it. So I'm gonna thin it out with some poppy paint thinner, and I'm gonna add an extra drop. So I'm gonna put 2 drops because I like to have my black paint a little bit thin when I do fine lines. So I'm gonna thin it out real good. Wipe it off a little bit. Don't wanna have too much paint. We're gonna start making his teeth. So we're gonna do the first one right down the middle underneath his nose. And we're gonna do 2 more lines on each side. Do you see how nicely that's going on? It would not go on like that without the thinner. So there's his little mouth, and let's go ahead and outline it while we have our paint thinned out. I'm gonna start in the middle and slowly work my way to the outside. You don't want heavy outlines. Better to have a light outline than too dark. And we can go ahead and outline his little eyes too. You don't have to outline his eyes, but like I said, the small details really make the difference. All right, there's both his eyes and his mouth. And we can go ahead and do his little whiskers as well. His whiskers are gonna go right about, let's do the first one right here straight out. And there's his whiskers. There we go. And I think it's time that we can do our catch light. So dip into your white, and if your white is dried out like mine is, add a drop of thinner. For his eyes, I'm going to use this smaller end of my nail dotting tool. I'm gonna go in the top right corner, straight down, just like that. I'm gonna do one on the other side as well. What a difference that makes. We are moving on to his belly, and now on this other one, he's smaller and you have his whole belly and his arms. On this one, we're just going to do half of his belly and he won't have any arms. Going to outline where I want his belly to go with Buttercup before I fill it in. I'm going to do a small line for his belly. And now we can fill it in. I fill it in with a rounded tip brush. Dip it good to get the paint in the bristles, and then I'm going to wipe it off. Don't want to use too much at one time. Always start with a nice thin layer and then let it dry. It'll take about 10 seconds before you apply your second layer. There we go. Then we're going to draw his little arrows that are on his belly. Not really sure what those are. Maybe hair, I have no idea, but that's what he looks like in the movie. So we're going to put some of those on there, and we're going to use gray. Let's see. And he has 4 on the top and 5 on the bottom. So I'm going to actually start with the bottom one because that'll tell me where the middle is. And then I can do the top ones on either side, just like that. I'm gonna make them slightly thicker. Then the last thing that I'm going to do is outline his belly. A little bit more black. Okay, so I'm going to do the outside of his belly, and I'm going to sort of ruffle it up. I'm not going to do a straight line. I'm sort of going to do like a scalloped line so it looks like fur. Hold my stick while I do the bottom. I'm going to do the other side as well. Whoops, almost went into the buttercup. There we go. That's our second Totoro. Okay guys, we finished our Totoro cake pops, and that was the last episode in our Studio Ghibli series. I hope you enjoyed the whole thing, and I hope to see you guys back here soon.